Hey, here we are, Cairo Mafia. We are with the Dom, brother from, I don't know, we might even be the same mother. We've talked about
We
that
may be.
before.
I'm going to talk to my mother today. I've been hesitating to talk to her, but I'm like, man, Mom, does this guy look familiar to
Yeah,
you? Because
yeah, yeah.
I think
Is
he's
this
my brother.
the older brother you never told me about? The one you had to give up for adoption because you didn't want your parents to know
Exactly.
that you were pregnant?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, it's all good. Well, hey, we spent some time talking before the recording, and it's like, oh, what do you want to talk about today? Which usually it, but we know when it's off the cuff and innate flows, it's usually the best. And really, what we want to talk about is purpose. And so, I think that's the number one biggest problem because when you look at all the old timers, man, that paved the road that we drive on.
Yes.
We don't have the battles that they had decades ago, where they had to fight,
Yes.
literally fight for chiropractic. We don't have to fight. It's household word. It's household name. So, but you look at that old school purpose. You look at the guys that are leading the profession today, and they have old school philosophy. It's the principle. And then what's their purpose? All the leaders that are out there today, why do they step into leadership? Because they already built a big practice. They already knew how to do it. They already knew how to turn people into lifetime patients. They already knew how to have a patient bring their family and adopt chiropractic as their primary health care. And that's based on the principle. And then you look at there's other people and you run into them. Well, chiropractic is great and they understand the principle, but what are they doing? They're building a life for themselves and their family. And I think that's awesome. You got to take care of your family, man. And you want a lifestyle and you want all those things. And those things become the barrier. Success becomes the barrier to purpose. Because then you hit that level. What do? We adopt or we adapt, and we adapt to a comfort zone. And then those people get in the comfort zone, and what happens? Well, if you've established a great business, you're paying your bills, you're making income, maybe you've made some great investments and you're stable financially, and that is freaking awesome. Everybody needs to do that. And then we look at, man, when you're building your clinic for the community, and you're not creating a patient, you're creating a leader because you want to create a legacy that goes beyond your lifetime. And you want to affect generations. I say, and that's the tagline of Elite. We create a legacy, chiropractic lifestyle legacy that affects generations. I mean, and I'm sure you know this, Joe, and I know I'm going on right here with this intro.
Oh, baby, bring it.
But I got out of school 6 years ago, right? And I practiced in Newport Beach, but then moved away. Came back 30 some odd years later, and run into patients and that had kids, and these kids were like 5 years old at the time, and I was taking care of them. And now those kids are 35 years old and 40 years old, and they have kids, and those kids run the kids that I never met. They were born 30 years later that are unvaccinated. They're still through now the three generations. My original patient, the kid that's now the parent, and their kids all go
Right.
to chiropractors every week.
Yes.
And shit, I didn't even know what a pre-consultation was 35 years ago. I didn't know
Right.
anything.
Right.
But what did we know? We knew the principle, and we had purpose to make a difference in humanity,
Yes.
not build a practice. I remember at DE, I'll tell this one last thing. I remember at DE, the first time I really heard the principle from like a Jim Sigafus. And I remember standing in this crowd in 2000. And I remember the epiphany is like, wow, this is a message for humanity. Like I never intended on building a practice. Yeah, I mean, literally, you want to build a practice. But the intention was always to get a message out to humanity.
Right.
And how could you understand the nervous system is life force energy of the body?
Right.
You have to have a healthy spine because if you don't, you ain't going to have that life force energy, man.
Exactly.
And that's it. It's black or white. Like, what is it you don't understand? Tell me what you
Yes.
don't understand. Okay, it's a new concept. I get it. Your MD, pediatrician never told you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But now you know. Is there something about that you don't understand?
Yes. We're doing a, in the office, we are doing the chiropractic textbook. So each week the team reads over 10 pages. I think it's about 10 pages per chapter. And then there's a series of about 6 to 8 questions after each chapter. So we've discussed it. So we're on the third chapter next week. And again, when you're looking at what these guys are talking about, the Stevenson, who wrote it obviously with the over the guidance of BJ, um, that you read that, that's what I was talking to the docs and the staff about today was, what were they doing? Like they weren't looking for a backache, a neck ache. They weren't looking even at a stomach ache. They were looking at where a nade originated from. Where does the infinite become finite? It's called transmutation. How does something non-material become material and then have action, force, and intelligence to cause what would otherwise be still, not my words, right? How does it animate tissue? How does it animate molecules? How does it reorganize tissue that would otherwise be disorganized, right? Non-life, throw you out in the yard, you're going to turn into dirt, right? The material, the matter's the same. So there's a life force energy. There's intelligence being expressed continually, giving your body its structure, giving it its organization. And so that's what those guys were really tapping into. They were really tapping into, where does life come from? What is life? What is the vital force? Where does that come? Where does it originate from? And if we can't fully locate that, and they use some theoretical ideas, but it expresses itself. Obviously, if it's in quantity and quality, the expression is going to give greater organization, it's going to give greater vitality, it's going to give greater life. So in the end, that's what you're doing. You're not treating things, you're removing interference to the life force, the life energy that expresses itself. I mean, that's what they're doing. And I was telling you before we got on the call, Reggie was my mentor, one of many, but probably the one that was most influential next to my father. And I remember sitting in and it was a New Beginnings, and they had a pretty big crowd there that weekend, and Reggie and I had a relationship where he was my coach, kind of like my football coach, you know what I mean? So I wasn't like in a personal friendship with my football coach, so I wasn't in like a personal friendship with Reggie. Probably not till he got up there in age. I think he passed when he was 86, but not until those last maybe couple of years. So he called me over. So for him to say Joe was always a little surprising to me, because again, I wasn't on that, nor was I
We're on
looking
a
to have
first
that kind
name
of relationship with him.
basis.
Right, exactly. So he was with Irene, and he goes, "Hey Joe, come on over, sit out." I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there with him and Irene, and we're listening to a couple of docs on stage, and he was speaking later that day, and he just got quiet. And I remember who was up there, but I'll shut my mouth about it. Not that I'm trying to create problems, but they were off point, and
But
a
you are
lot of docs were off point, and he turned to me and he goes, "The only problem with chiropractic are the chiropractors." And he got up kind of forcefully, and he beelined out of there, so that I sat closer to Irene. I moved over a seat. I said, "What's going on?" She was, "Oh, he can hardly listen to anyone anymore. He can listen to you. He likes listening to you, but he can't listen to hardly anyone anymore. If they're not talking
God, what
about
a compliment
chiropractic."
that is, huh?
Huh?
What a compliment that is.
Yes. I'll tell you, the biggest compliment I ever had was Reggie. I started chiropractic consulting, and we had one of our events in Vegas, and we used to have it at Circus when we got started. I think we had like 5 members, and Circus was so cheap, and I just tried to make it cheap for everybody, included us. And we ended up moving to one of the, I think it was the Pyramid there, and Reggie Luxor. And Reggie came out and he spoke at the Luxor, and I have some video of it, but it was that was a compliment. That was great. It was really, he came to me after and said, one of the best things about what I do is creating other leaders, and, you know, for somebody to stay true to what we do and what we teach. And yeah, I mean, I get emotional just telling you. It was just for me, that was great. It was a great moment for me. So
I would have loved to have been there. I've never
yeah.
seen Reggie speak. I mean, I've seen
Yeah.
videos, but I've never seen him live. He was never
I mean,
on a
God
TV.
bless him. He was throwing clots. He had atrial fib and he was throwing clots, I believe. And he flew out to Vegas, and I remember him speaking at New Beginnings and somewhere else. And, you know, and he sat in a chair, and, you know, because he get a little breathy, but I mean, once he started talking, he was, you know, he
Freight
was
train.
animated. Let's just put it that way. You know, he wasn't up there like Sid with a thunderous voice in the later days, but he, you know, you could see Reggie. He was still there, man.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, so the principle is so simple, and you got the pre and post X-ray up there because in honor of spinal correction,
yeah,
and because we work with a lot of CBP guys, and they get in their head a bit, and they forget about the principle, like why do we correct the spine? Well,
right,
there is number one, there is an optimal structure. I wrote the Back to Health books on. If
sure,
you're on Facebook, go to Secrets of the Seven-Figure Lifestyle Practice Facebook group and ask to join. Because I go through studies that show the relationship between posture, spinal structure, the function of the nervous system, and overall health. I mean, we talked about trauma. There was a study out of Spine Journal, I think it was 1995, and they talked about minor soft tissue injuries to the spine can lead to early morbidity,
yes,
like minor ligamentous instabilities of the spine. When you look, you got a 35-degree lordotic curve. So I talk about what's important about a lordotic curve. The curve has strength. Why? Because the spine has to protect spinal cord. It's not about
right,
spine, it's about spinal cord. And then going through CBP's whiplash, when you have trauma to a lordotic curve, it sustains trauma. Why? Because when you injure the spine, you injure the spinal cord. If
right,
like if you go from that 35-degree to that straight hypolordotic 7-degree neck, you can do that in a second with
yes,
the trauma. You don't think you've injured the spine, that soft, delicate, sensitive spinal cord? That's
no,
massive. And then they show the difference between what happens in a trauma with a lordotic curve versus what happens in a trauma if you don't have that, if you're
right,
hypolordotic or kyphotic. And the extent of ligament damage, the difference in ligament damage is huge.
huge, yeah,
Now you get these intersegmental translations, man. People look at, well, that's a disability. And, like some of the CBP guys are like, well, I got to get that 7-degree to the 35-degree because, we want to prevent degeneration, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm looking at the posterior body and then where the lamina connect and make spinous process. Well, what's that? Oh, that's called the spinal canal.
exactly,
That's where the spinal cord is.
right,
So when you see retros and posterior spurs, that's a problem. So I'm visualizing like my eyes are an MRI, and I see
yes,
those spurs creating contact, bony contact with the spinal cord. Is that a
yes,
problem?
yes,
So there's another study in spine that says when you're kyphotic, like if you have apical kyphotic segments, how the spinal cord, because spinal cord travels down the path down the spine, it has to, and that's why I used to tell patients, and when a subluxated spine, then the spinal cord is trapped. I would use that word. It's trapped in the spinal canal. It has to move wherever the spine goes
correct,
because it has to protect it, right? So when you have those kyphotic segments, there's another article in another study in Spine. Hello, one of the top spinal medical research journals. I think that was 2005. It says the spinal cord will lay against the posterior body of that apical segment. Now you have bony contact with a soft myelin sheath. And then what's it do? So as you flexion, extend, laterally flex, move your head around, turn it in traffic, spinal cord is rubbing against bone and it creates a callus. And it's called sclerotic
Right.
multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, terminal disease. And it'll say it'll demyelinate the cord. Is that a problem? Demyelination?
Yes.
And so then you
Yes.
get all these people to say, well, innate put it there. And my response for that, well, innate put that kyphotic segment. So that kyphotic curve. So that means I shouldn't want to change it. My answer is, so you basically didn't study shit about spinal biomechanics. You don't really know
Right.
spinal biomechanics. Because then you would know medical studies show that's a shortened lifespan. So what
Exactly.
is it about being, I don't know, a chiropractor that you don't understand about that?
Exactly. Yes.
That's principle.
Correct.
That's not
Correct.
just biomechanics and correcting the spine. That is the principle coming into physical matter, creating demyelination of the cord.
Yes.
Is that a
Yeah.
problem?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's
We
what I
always
say.
use the example in where a subluxation is present because innate's 100% good and 100% healthy, and innate does everything to fully express with the highest level. If obviously being quantity and quality, right, being fully
Yeah.
expressed. And subluxation, what we look at a lot of times is your body's ability to adapt or trying to adapt to the subluxation. But a subluxation is the body's inability to adapt to that force, to that stressor, right? So if I put your arm across two chairs, and you know this, Fred, right? If I put your arm across two chairs and I stand on your arm, and I'm about 240 and I start like jerking up and down a little bit, what are you going to do? You're going to try to adapt. You're going to tighten up. You're going to go like, holy Jesus. You're going to cramp up your arm. You're going to do everything you can to adapt to that stress, to that force. And then what's
Until
going
it
to happen if I
breaks.
keep honking on it? The arm breaks. And that's the subluxation. The subluxation occurs because you've exceeded what the body can adapt to. And
All right.
everything you see post after that, everything you see that occurs after that is innate adapting to the subluxation in 100% fashion. So whether it lays bone down and blood down, whether it's throwing down stuff as fast as it can, may not look perfectly organized, but it's doing everything it can to address the damage from that fracture, just like it's doing everything it can to address the damage from the subluxation while still trying at its best to retain or maintain or sustain some level of neurologic connectivity to the area of the cord that's been damaged. I mean, so what we're often looking at, and we often call subluxation, really we're right to say C5 or T1 or whatever, but what we're looking at really are the body's adaptive forces to try to adapt to what the subluxation is or what the subluxation did or what's happening as a result of the subluxation. So
Absolutely. And that's what you see on x-ray. However, that adaptation is directly affecting the spinal cord. So there's
totally.
another study. I believe it's in the Lancet. It's in the book Back to Health. By the way, you can go to elitecoachingllc.com. And one of the things I read all the studies in the boot camp at our last day 1, day 2 boot camp, and there's a couple. Well, let me go through the Lancet first. It talks about how when you lose the curve, you create traction on the spinal cord. I mean, that's Alf Bragg, right? Another MD. And
Right.
when you stretch the cord, it slows the conductivity, but it
Right.
also puts you in sympathetic override.
Right.
So immediately, I mean, you guys know sympathetic, let's make it real simple. You're in fight or flight and you can't get out of it. And then how that crashes your immune system and does all that. So, and it talks about in the Lancet, it mentions cancer.
Yes.
It mentions autoimmune.
Yes.
And what's one of the reasons people quit? Well, you look at because they're out of pain, and well, if they quit because they're out of pain, you missed it all on day one anyway.
Right.
Day one, day two. But what's another reason people go through a program and they quit? Well, they start getting healthy, and that's healthcare. Chiropractic is not healthcare. What's healthcare? Healthcare is you have a problem, you go to a doctor, you solve the problem, and you quit. That's not chiropractic. Chiropractic is healthcare lifestyle. That's very different, right? Healthcare is a belief system. Healthcare lifestyle is a belief system. And so people quit. Why? They get better. Their belief system is this for healthcare. And then what happens? Life gets overwhelmed. I want to tell a story real quick because we came back from a boot camp, and one of the things we teach our patients is we teach the doctors is like a key to a door. On day one, you're looking for the door. What's the door? When you can get the person to say chiropractic is a healthcare lifestyle, right on day one. That can happen in the consult, can happen in the pre-consult. It can happen at any point. So anyway, patient comes in, it's been a long-term pain-based patient. Doctor hasn't seen him in a while. And I always say, when you're curious, you're one why question away from why they will never leave. So this patient comes in, here's how basic it is. Comes in, I haven't seen him in, a couple of years. What's going on? Back hurts, how come? Well, I've been sleeping on my couch every day for a year. And I told the story. And simple question, gee, why have you been sleeping on your couch?
Exactly.
He goes, my wife died a year ago and I can't sleep in my bed. Oh my God, man. Like, here's a back pain patient. So now when you have that back to health book and you realize the cord's under sympathetic, he's under sympathetic override. Now you have a trauma like that. Anybody that's in sympathetic override cannot handle any additional emotional stress.
Correct.
They're already in anxiety and they're already overwhelmed. So now you add other conditions in life. Why do people quit? What are the excuses? Work's getting busy. I have this other project. I'm running my kids around. What are they not saying? They're emotionally overwhelmed. Why? Because your spinal cord's under stress. You can't handle the events that life is going to bring you when your nervous system is already in a state of anxiety.
And you're not in an anabolic, you're catabolic. Bruce Lipton talks about you can't be in a state of right defense and stress and fight or flight and growth at the same time. So you're breaking down.
Well, here's the miracle of chiropractic, right? So I tell the doctor, I go, look, I would tell the guy, look, your nervous system is under so much stress that you can't process the sorrow of your wife. You're stuck. So anyway, so the guy ends up signing up, prepaying for corrective care all of a sudden. Why? Because they changed the meaning. Comes in 3 days later in the same week and says, I just remembered how much fun and joy I have when I horseback ride. I'm going to start riding horses. Why was he stuck for a year? And why, after 3 adjustments, could he have a memory of joy?
Yes.
Because you took him out of sympathetic stress.
Yes.
And so what's the meaning? I go, look at that. You're getting a healthier nervous system and your body's releasing that sorrow.
Yes. Yeah.
So immediately, being that we're coaches, we have a coaching mindset. I told the doctor, here's what I would say to him. I'd say, do you ever feel the presence of your wife in your house? Everybody's going to say yes. You're a spiritual being. You're going to feel their presence, right?
Yes.
And I say, why don't you go up to your room and connect with your wife spiritually? Now, because she's not there physically, if you cry, let that sorrow come out. It's okay. But then you can have moments of joy. Now, if he couldn't go to his room in a year, and in a week of chiropractic, he can be in his room and experience the presence of his wife, he will never leave. He could move to the frickin' Philippines and he will never forget you in 30 years. And that's what chiropractic would mean. Now, here's the next thing. Hey, do you have kids? He's an older guy, so they're going to be all grown with kids. Well, yeah, I have 2 kids. Well, how are they handling the death of their mother? Well, it's pretty rough on them. Well, how are the grandkids handling it? Yeah, there's a couple of them that are having a really hard time. Do you think you should bring them in here? Done the next day. He helps them, if chiropractic helps them process the sorrow of their past mother, they're there. You get 6 new patients that week.
Yes.
Times is there's something bigger. The principle never, it's always there all the time. And if you
It is.
don't know the effect that's happening on the nervous system and what people are really experiencing their subluxation, because it's not just about their health, it's their anxiety. And you guys know this, it's the depression. It's why people quit. They
Yes.
quit because they're overwhelmed. Why?
Yep.
Because look, it's that 7-degree curve on the left. That is a spinal cord under tension.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're in stress in their body. Yeah. I mean, that's our goal. Our goal is, I try to expand that. I know you do, Fred, as well. Like, you are a teacher, you are a leader. Like, you can't, you can do whatever you want, but if you want to grow and you want to serve more people, you have to meet them where they are, but you don't stay where they are, like, okay, I'll meet you where you are, but listen, take me by the hand and I'm going to take you somewhere. Like, if you're not doing that, you're not taking them anywhere. If you don't take them anywhere, they're coming in for pain and they're leaving. If you're not teaching them that, look, what we do is a lifestyle, that you don't have a spine problem, you got a health problem. You don't have a spine problem, you got a neurologic problem. You don't have a spine problem, you got a disease organ sickness problem. You got a brain problem. Like, if you're not taking them from where they are to somewhere else, then you yourself won't grow, but they won't grow. So then they're going to come when they hurt, leave when they feel better, right? And then you create this revolving door, and then you get stuck and you hit your head up against the ceiling because you're not leading them, you're not taking them anywhere. And then when you realize, like Sid talked about, which is what you're talking about now, Fred, or what, Jim Sigafus, who I trained with, what they talk about is that something extra. When you're going in and you're providing everything, but you're vibrating at a higher level, that you're in spirit, that you're in innate, that you realize that you are a vital force of energy that's putting another connecting with their vital force and putting vital force energy into their body. And when you get to that level, that's something else. That's when magical, like healing, and I don't mean to minimize it when I say that, it's at that metaphysical, spiritual level. That's why people become healers. I can't tell you the number of times I put my hands in somebody and I'm not even done with what I would consider the adjustment and they're off the table. Fred's like, oh, I'm off, doc. Oh my God, that was great. And, I used to fight that. Now I'm like, man, they got what they needed. I was given more than what I was considering a mechanical adjustment. They get up, wow, that was great. High five. You're straighter, you're healthier, body's working better. See you on Wednesday. And all of a sudden, something else was happening other than just the adjustment. So protocols are important, procedures are important. You got to know how to handle the volume. You got to create systems. I talked a lot about this with you, Fred, and I know, in our group and on stage, that I remember when I really wanted to grow, like I really, and you go through stages, right? The higher you climb, the higher you see that the further you want to climb, right? And I really started getting some crazy numbers, and I started to visit other chiropractors, so I visited some other guys that were just seeing really big numbers in the day. They might have been seeing a few hundred people in a day or more. And I was like, wow, I mean, that just blew my mind, because I was seeing maybe a couple hundred people in a week, to see somebody seeing 200 or 300 in a day. You're like, wow. And I will tell you that everyone did something different, not dramatically different, but their protocols, procedures were different, but they all did everything exactly the same. So if you were in D'Onofrio's office, and you went in and his day one and day two, and he kind of did a 3-day thing, but day one, day two, and a kind of a group orientation he did, like everyone got processed the same way. Everybody. Now, if I went into Ian Grossman and he was seeing a ton of people, he did some different procedures, but man, you gotta own it that everyone saw everyone. He did his procedures exactly the same way. You went to Reggie and Ernie Landy and other guys that were really seeing a lot of people. Like, they did a procedure. They own their procedure. They own their protocol. It was reproducible. It was consistent. It was concise. It had clarity. It had congruency. And then you couple that with this, your heart and what's going on here. And then with that mission, purpose, why, holy mackerel. I mean, nothing is going to stop you. Nothing. You're
Yeah.
not going to know what to do with all the people that come see it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We came back from the day one, day two boot camp, and you know this, Joe. One, you're like the king of simple. When it's simple, they get it.
Yes.
And, so we simplify the principle, and health is energy.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about. There was healing. Healing is energy. And what you're talking about with your adjustment before you even made the adjustment was there was an energy exchange, like literally. And that's what you said. It took you a minute to realize they're already healed. There was an energy exchange.
Right.
They're already healed. Now,
Yes.
when patients understand healing is energy, and then, so a lot of these docs went back and all of a sudden, man, all I'm doing is talk about energy. And I'm like, how do patients respond? Well, their eyes light up like they get it. Health
Right.
is energy, because not every patient cares about spine, but every
Right.
person, every human being cares about energy. That's
Right.
innate, right? So one of the reframes, like what you said, take them by the hand. And the thing isn't take them by the hand and educate them. The thing is take them by the hand and change their beliefs. And that's what you do. And how do you change beliefs? What you're the king at is asking questions. That's how you change beliefs. So one of the questions, and you guys, I challenge you to use this with your patients. So when they understand, you go, hey, you know what? Before you came here, did you know that health was energy? Yeah, energy moves through your spinal cord and nervous system, and that's what brings health, right? So health is energy. You get that, right? And they'll say, yeah. And I go, and then I'd say, so did you come in with health problems, or did you come in with an energy problem? And they'll say,
Right.
well, if they get it, they'll say energy. If they don't, they'll say, well, health problems. And here's the thing, you don't want to associate the word health and the word problem together because they can go to an MD for a health problem, right? So what you
Right.
do is you meet them where they're at, like what you said. Did you have a health problem or an energy problem? If they say health problem, I go, actually, I had several health conditions that were caused by one problem. Now, why is the number one important? Because if you only had one problem, there's one solution. So you say we had several health conditions, but you only had one problem. So if health is energy, you're giving them the answer. What's the one problem that caused several health conditions? And they'll say energy. Now, right there, it's like, great. So you got to have great energy to be healthy your whole life. So what part of the rest of your life are you going to use chiropractic care every week for the health of you and your family? They may not bring their family in yet, but you already tell them, well, the rest of our lives. Great. Who do you want to start with? Wife, kids. When you
Yes.
do that and they get that the only problem is an energy problem, what's important about that? Because they can't go to MDs, don't solve energy problems.
Correct. You go to
There's
the
only one
drugstore and
place they
guess
can go.
what? It's
What's
not
that?
on the aisle. Exactly.
Yeah, it's not in Rite Aid. Can't go to the pharmacy in Rite Aid
You
and solve
can't.
an
That's
energy.
why I always say, like, don't put yourself on a shelf next to anyone else. Like the more we utilize terminology, and I know we're educated that way, and I know we got to pass our boards that way, and I know we carry the title doctor, and the world's a little different than it was in 1922. I understand that, I get that. So we do have to play a little bit on both sides because you do have to be knowledgeable of those things. I understand that. But the more I utilize that medical terminology, I leave as a practice member or as a prospect, I go online and I go, oh, he said scoliosis. So I'm going to look in scoliosis. Scoliosis is what? Well, it's a curvature of the spine. Who treats it? Well, orthos, neuros, chiropractors, physical therapists, massage therapists, meds, drugs, surgery. I might even see some negative things about chiropractors taking care of scoliosis. But I created that because I use that terminology in giving them the idea that that's wrong and that's what we're treating them with, rather than, hey, listen, is your spine straight or crooked? Crooked, right? They may say, well, I know I have scoliosis. Yeah, but here's the real concern. What's inside there? What's happening to that? Like all of a sudden, I'm not taking care of their scoliosis. I'm taking care of their nervous system. I'm taking care of what you're saying, Fred, the energy. I'm taking care of the expression of innate in their body. They can't get that in Rite Aid. They can't get that in Kinney's. That's not going to be next to the momentum in the Advil. So is that 100%? Nothing that Fred and I are going to teach you are going to, oh, well, geez, I do that and it's 100%. It's never going to be 100%. The goal is, listen, if you're going in and you're at 30% and you could get to 50 or 60%, do you realize the ramifications of that improvement? Like, not only you doubling the number of people that are following your recommendations, what do you think that's going to do over the period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 10x that? That is monumental in the number of people you help, the families, your retention, not to mention your income, the quality of your life. So it's never like, hey, listen, coach, you're going to get this nugget and all that's going to be 100%. We're trying to improve, because we don't know where they're at when they come in. We're trying to improve that number. That's where, if you get to 90+% or higher, man, you are hitting it, and people are going to stay with you long, stay, pay, refer. You are changing lives. One of the lives you're going to change is your own and your family's.
Absolutely. And then the next thing is, because we have doctors that call us, I'm sure you get this, and they have a high commitment to care. They can be great at starting a patient.
Yes.
Starting a patient is
Retention's
not
terrible.
keeping it. You can start
Correct.
9 out of 10 and have a 15 PVA.
Correct.
It's easy to start somebody. So the real question is, shoot, when you have an 80 PVA,
Right.
and you're getting, that means, and you're getting 8 out of 10. 80,
Yes.
our goal is at least 85%. So if you're getting 85% or more, I mean, we have people up to 92 to 96%. And then you can get 9 out of 10 of those 85% staying into monthly payments because it's lifestyle.
Yes.
And this, so I'm going to be doing a 5-day event. I probably should have you on it as a guest. It's like how to work on your practice rather than in your practice, right? So
Yes.
everybody's has all the great CEO programs, and they're and they're great, and how to get out of your practice and how to hire associates. Well, here's the thing: the best way to get out of your practice is with an 80 to 100 plus PVA,
Right.
because they already get it. You don't have to worry about
Right.
your schedule. Everything is easy. That's how you get out of your practice. Now, can you get out of your practice with a 40 or 30 PVA? Yeah. But what are you doing? Spending a bunch of money on marketing.
Correct.
Or you could just keep people, create lifetime people, do that for a few years, get 400, 500 lifetime people, 300, and you have a great life for your family with just your monthly payments.
Yes.
So that's
So
our
that's one of the reasons we relate so well to each other, because from a chiropractic standpoint, just on that platform, we're always talking about lifetime, life care, wellness care, the idea of tending after people, nurturing after people, caring after people, like, not to name names, but you've got other groups, and I'm not here to bash it, but they're doing 90-day care plans, like they're doing a treatment protocol. And when you get into that, what you're not going to realize is, and some of these guys, they release people after 90 days. It's all about a treatment. It's about a treatment plan, a treatment care. So you're constantly going to bed going, your practice is only a reflection of how many new ones you brought in over the last 30 or 60 days just to sustain it, and there's no fun in that. There's no wealth in that. In their mind, in their life, you're not giving them wealth, and in your body, in your life, you're not giving them wealth. But when you lead people to lifetime care, listen, they're going to do what they're going to do. But if I talk big vision, more of them are going to follow the vision. If I talk little vision, small vision, guess what? They're all going to follow what you do because you're the quarterback. Hey, listen, you need 90 days of care. And then if you're providing good symptoms at that point and things are resolved, we're going to release you of care. And then, I hear these groups, and it's like, well, after they come back 2 or 3 times, well, this is what I do for my family. Like, how many lives have been lost? How many people haven't come back because you told them they only needed 90 days? Why would you start with such a small threshold in order to talk about tick and care? It makes me angry. It makes me cry. It disappoints me. And then, you've got a large percentage of the profession, they're following some of those protocols. And then, it changes the whole perception and perspective of what chiropractic is. And now it's, anything that's natural that you do, which can be, different modalities. It could be nutrition. It could be, actually, I'm not negating the value of any of those things, but I'd be concerned if my orthodontist did an ultrasound on my heel spur. I'd be concerned about that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it may not be necessary and it wouldn't help me, but I'm like, dude, what the frick are you doing right now? I got crooked teeth. Why, you put on your chart, you got a heel spur, so I'm going to take care of that. Like, I'm not trying to be the doctor, and you guys do what you're going to do. Dee Dee Palmer always said, keep chiropractic center stage in your practice. But I mean, you could go into a room, adjust somebody, turn on their life in a matter of moments and just reproduce that over and over. And you could help a ton of people in a highly time efficient way, change lives, and make an unbelievable amount of income to change those lives. Why would you mess with that? Why? And we did it 3 days a week. How do you mess with that? How do you mess that up? Only a
Well, that's,
chiropractor can mess that up.
when you're creating a treatment program, then you bought into the model of healthcare.
Exactly.
You have a
Exactly.
problem, you solve it, and they leave, and that's what you're doing. You're not in the
Right.
healthcare lifestyle, right? That's not the
Right.
principle. So this is why, I mean, I work with corrective care practices, which, there's a program of correction, but every patient only has one problem. They never took care of their spine and nervous system. So the
Correct.
reason they're on a corrective program is that's just day one, day two is only about one thing: assessing the damage in their health and their nervous system,
Correct.
their spine, because they
Exactly.
never lived the lifestyle.
Exactly.
So your
Exactly.
corrective program, that's why the umbrella name, phase of care, intensive corrective
Exactly.
stabilization. The umbrella for that is that's the health recovery phase. All
Yes.
we're doing is trying to repair the damage of the first 46 years you never take care of your spine and nervous system. So
Yes.
now that you have 16 different health problems because you never took care of it, then the major question is, how do you want to live the rest of your life?
Right.
Do you see
Right.
why this is a healthcare lifestyle? What part of the next 50 years are you going to use chiropractic every week? To one, you don't ever end up with these health problems. Two, you can have the highest confidence in the strength and health of your body where you don't even have to worry about disease.
Right. And I love what you said. Everyone comes in with what? What did you say? You said
One
everybody's
problem,
coming in with one problem, which is what?
they never live chiropractic lifestyle.
Right, right. There's that great story, and I know you've heard it, and I probably told it to you about the two guys, and they run the shoe stores, and they go to India, and the one owner of the shoe store says, "Listen, I want you to go to India. I want to see if it's a good place to open up a shoe manufacturing plant." And the other guy says the same thing to another guy, different company. They both come back. First guy says to the owner, "Hey, what's going on?" The owner says to him, and he says, "Bad idea, bad idea, bad place to open it up." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "No one's wearing any shoes." So the other guy comes to the other company. He goes, the owner says, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh my God, boss, you're not going to believe it. We hit the lottery." He goes, "Why?" He goes, "No one's wearing any shoes. Everybody's a customer." You know what I mean? It's like, so everyone's a customer in chiropractic. No one takes care of their spine. No one's taking care of their nervous system. So, there's a lot of people out there with backaches. There's a lot of customers out there that have backaches and sciatica and all those other medical conditions, as you word it, which is dead on. But none of them, along with everyone else, they're not getting care for chiropractic lifestyle. I'm not going to do a straight leg raise on an infant who comes in, right? I'm not going to do a Kemp's and a facet compression, right? I'm checking them for subluxation and adjusting them, not for so-called orthopedic problems, but for subluxation to check where their nervous system is not functioning properly. I mean, when you come from that place, everybody needs care. You talk that way, you lead people that way, your practice grows, you have more fun, your retention's higher, you're going to get more hugs, more high fives, more presents for Christmas than you ever imagined, and your income is going to go through the roof. So.
Well, and that's the thing, people, I remember in my practice, and you probably said the exact same thing. When people say, "Well, doc, how did I get like that?" when they're looking at their x-rays, now what all the management groups teach you, well, you had this accident, and you did this, and they go to traumas, right?
Right.
And I remember I would say, "Did you take care of your spine and nervous system since you were born?" And they will,
Right.
no. Well, I didn't know. Well, you know now.
Right. Exactly.
And
You're how old, Fred?
yeah, and in the consultation, right? Hey, well, when your MD gave you the asthma inhaler, did he talk to you about the whiplash you had 6 years earlier?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that whiplash now we can, damage your neck and upper back where the nerves to your lungs. By the way,
Exactly.
there's a studying back to health on forehead head posture and how that shuts down respiratory function.
Right.
So, so it's what they didn't know and what they weren't told
Correct.
by their
Correct.
pain-based chiropractor and
Correct.
by their medical doctor. And
Yes.
then when they find out what they weren't told, and then you ask, what was the cost of your health that you suffered because nobody told you?
Yes.
What cost have you paid?
Yeah.
And then, do you want to, is that something you want to keep feeding? You want to
Yeah.
continue to pay that? Because it only
Exactly.
gets worse. What do you,
Right. It
how do
ain't
you
gonna
want to
get
live the
better.
next 50 years? Yeah. Now that you know, what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
And that's
Listen,
all.
my best recommendation you may not follow, but I can tell you my worst recommendation is to do nothing. So let's figure it out. We just did a video recently on that topic of, in your way of saying it, getting them to know. And were you check? I always say, were you checked? Fred, how old are you? You're 55 years old. Were you checked as an infant? Did your parents, now you have two kids at home, were they checked? Did they go to a chiropractor? Have they been evaluated for subluxation? Like when you word it in that way, you just start a conversation on the right platform. Now I'm talking about spine, nervous system, the body's ability to express vital healing through the nervous system. Now I'm talking about what I want to talk about, what they need to hear. That's a whole different level of practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, here's our one liner. Doc, what's your recommendation? Well, I recommend that you get healthy and you live healthy the rest of your life. That's my
Exactly.
recommendation.
Exactly.
What, that's it. Like some people, well, I recommend, then they'll talk about a program like, get out of your doctor head, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Be a principal chiropractor. It's like, well, what do you recommend? I recommend that you fucking get healthy. That's what I
Right.
recommend. And then you live the rest of your life like that. And you might want to have your family live like that too. What do you think
Exactly.
about that? Sounds good. Where do I pay?
Right here. Let's
Like that's
go.
about how easy it is. So hey, we gotta rock and roll. So
Yep. Great
anyway,
call. Great spending time with you.
yeah, always, man. Great principle. Hey, so when's your next event? What do you got coming up?
Yeah, we got an event coming up in Italy. We still have 5 spots left, July 18th, 19th, and 20th. We do it right at my villa, which is great. And we spend some 3 days transformational growth, mindset. We call it the mastermind retreat. It's absolutely phenomenal. You leave well fed, that's for sure. And then our next event's going to be November 8th and 9th. That'll be in Fort Lauderdale. That's our practice mastery event.
Cool, man. We have a boot camp coming up. Go to Elite Coaching LLC, August 23rd to 25th. That's our retention boot camp. Hey, that's how you get past all time and money objections.
Yeah.
That's how you get families, and that's how you keep people for years. That's the 80 to 100 plus
Yeah.
PVA. So check it
PVA.
out. Give me a call. We'll chat. And definitely there's some great one-liners that you could use that we went through today. So
Yes, for
thanks,
sure.
brother. Hey, subscribe, share, and we'll see you on future episodes. Love you guys.